I was quite humbled when someone asked me to autograph one of their cubes, I think at 625. And someone asked me to autograph their shirt
Man,
at...
let's be real. That's man, Manu, you're in over your head. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Overinspected Podcast. And you already know that it is the greatest. Wait for it. Wait for it. Manu, Carrie.
I'm waiting.
The greatest speed cubing podcast
in the world.
Baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You know it.
The
it's
one
true. Number
and,
one
guys,
out of billions.
Yeah. Always alongside my co-host Carrie Huang, Mr. Manu Singh.
Hello.
Hi.
But today we got a really important episode today. Now, when we made season 1 for the Overinspected Podcast, we didn't quite have this foresight of what exactly this podcast might be. We had a vision. We had a vision of being able to have this YouTube discography of hours and hours of
God,
content.
you're so right. Yeah.
On Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on wherever we decided to put it, on redcircle.com, right? We had this whole idea of what we wanted this to be. We wanted people to find us and just never look back, right? But here's the thing. We didn't exactly understand what we wanted to execute to get there. We just started doing things, right? So for season 2, we clearly laid it out to you folks that we were going to do 20 episodes for season 2. Episode 21 to episode 40, with a little cheat episode in between. So, this is interesting because Manu, Carrie, this episode is all truly about reminiscing the Overinspected Podcast.
Indeed.
We are on the season 2 season finale. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's the season finale, season 2 of Overinspected, and I think the way you phrase it is perfect. Like, when we first started Overinspected, I remember you and I were sitting in my room, in the same room that you're sitting in right now, actually. And we were like,
actually.
If we make a podcast, we just thought of some ideas, like, okay, we can talk about these things for 10 episodes. And I remember, I think you were like, well, what if we want to do more than 10 episodes? And I here's what I said. At the time, I was like, or maybe I had the roles reversed. One of us was like, if we get past 10 episodes, this is a massive success. If we can,
I know. Yeah,
yeah.
I remember one of us brought up some statistic that 90% of podcasts don't get past the 3rd episode. So just being able to survive past that great. Oh, maybe it wasn't that extreme, but I just remember there's some stat that blows your mind that most people don't commit to the bit. But we've committed to the bit for 1.5 years.
True, yeah.
40 episodes.
Yeah. It is very wild to think that, you're right. When we first started, we were like, it would be really cool if we hit, some mass, right? And, there's just all this content that's just out there so that when new viewers come to watch, they have loads of stuff to already watch. They can start episode 1 if they want. They can start halfway in between. Overinspected has lore. There's, things that we refer back to. So there's loads of videos that we already have, and yeah, I would say mission accomplished so far.
Yeah, that's true. And I also want to point out that the season 1 finale, we actually didn't know that was going to be a finale at the time. So this is the first time that we're actually filming one while realizing it's a finishing point of part of the project.
Right.
It's the first time we get to reminisce.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I think at some point we should definitely pick out our favorite episodes and our favorite moments.
Definitely.
But when I think about season 1 and I think about season 2, I feel like for season 2, we did raw execution of everything that we have learned from season 1. And I feel like season 1, there's a lot of learning curves. I think in season 1, we had to really figure out some how are we going to schedule ourselves to do this, right? In season 1, how are we going to formulate the content? In season 1, Manu, you're a brand new editor. How are we going to edit?
Yeah.
Right? And I think at some point along the lines, we figured it out at the end of season 1, but we just ran out of episodes. We ran out of gas.
Yeah.
And we decided that at that moment it was time. when season 2 hit, I think season 2 is the best version. It would be the final draft of what season 1 could have been. So when I think about it like that, I think season 2 is inherently a better season than season 1. Not necessarily on the content front, but on the creator front as well. I think we all felt season 2, the workflow, the experience, the conversations was just a lot better. And I think season 3, when we ever get to that point, will be a season of experimentation. I think season 3 will probably, and we don't exactly know what that looks like, but I think, honestly, I think all of us are going to agree that we could definitely, there's so many ideas that we want to implement into
Oh my
Overinspected.
goodness. If there's one thing that we're good at, it's that the three of us are like very, very creative, and we have quite a bit of drive to make those things happen. So if we have an idea, if we just randomly mention something before, I think there's a pretty decent odds that it actually gets done at some point in the future.
True. And I just think that, like, you know, I think season 3 could be like season 2, but I actually think season 3 will be a new chapter in Overinspected and a new chapter in Cubers Live, to be honest with you.
That's a good point.
But that's how I feel about it. It's like nothing related to just another season. I think it's just like a storyline, you know?
Well, I mean, that's part of the goal, right? The goal is to do bigger and better every single time we do this. And I think we've achieved that so far, right? Like, I think you're right. Season 1, if you go back and watch like some of the old episodes, episode 1, episode 2, I think they're getting to the point where now, like, maybe if I listen to them, I might be like, okay, that was kind of cringe. Like, why is he doing this kind of stuff? Even my camera quality was worse, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that have changed since then. I think basically all of them are for the better. So.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is that I like the word experimentation for season 3, because it means that, like, if we want to try something that's a complete, like, pivot from before, like filming an episode in a hotel room, and even if it doesn't turn out to be, like, more enjoyable, it's different, and it like teaches us, you know, it kind of, if you imagine the map of things we've tried and, like, most of it's clouded in darkness, we've lit up another corner of that map.
Oh no!
Even if it's not as good.
It's like an open world. It's open world exploration now.
It is open world. Yeah.
I figured it'd also be a really quick shout out, and I want to make this very clear that this is a shout out. I love the idea. I've been on this huge gripe about what I think cubing content has become. Right? Like, I'm not really engaged by cubing content. I think that has something to do with the fact that I've become more of an adult, and then maybe what I find enjoyable is different. But I want to point out here that finally there is another podcast featuring cubers worth listening to.
Yes.
And man, that first episode, I had such a great time. But it is called
Are you talking about
The Solve Guys?
Yeah.
I was about to blurt it out, but I wanted you to have the honors of saying it.
Yeah. I mean, big props to
Tingman
yeah,
and
Mr.
TNL
Tingman.
Cubing.
Getting their
They
podcast
have
off the
launched
ground.
it.
I think so they had been talking about it for at least like a month or two, I think, right? And now it's like finally up and off the ground.
I love the
I think it was like
concept,
at least 3 months, because like I know like Tingman, or like it was at least a month between when he filmed an episode and like uploaded it, but then it was like another 2 months before that when he first like asked me, do you want to be on the pod? So they have a you know, I guess quite a long kind of production cycle. But I like, like you said, Manu, I like that their concept of like, this podcast is about solving problems and coming up with creative solutions.
See, that's what
Ours
I
is
think.
just ramble.
These podcasts, like, they serve different purposes, but I just want to point, like, it's so nice having podcast content from cubers.
Yeah.
And in a way that I can definitely appreciate. And I think in the world of, like, I don't want to say the world of real podcasts, but in the world of the developed podcast space, it feels like Tingman and TNL Cubing's podcast is the podcast version and the cuber version of Michelle Khare, and I love that.
Interesting. Okay.
I love that concept of being able to take problems and solving it from a cuber's perspective, and I think it could be extremely entertaining. I think that podcast could get strangely dark, and I think they will. which is going to be very
Strangely
interesting.
dark.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's going to be really, really dark moments in that podcast, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
And
So I guess one thing I will leak. It's technically a leak at this very moment, but I think once this episode releases, it will already be out. I actually listened to the second episode of the podcast because I think it was accidentally uploaded to Google Podcasts.
Is it still there?
Was it an accident?
So I listened to it yesterday, so it might still be there. Maybe it's gone. But I think like there were bits of that were like this is interesting, like not what I would have expected to hear necessarily. And I think it's a good avenue.
A lot more. Yeah, it's an unexplored content space.
Yes,
and I just love that it's in content. I love that it's in a podcast form. And I find our podcasts, we tend to be along the lines of, well, I think we modeled our podcast off of Trash Taste, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like, we modeled our concept off of Trash Taste, but I definitely view our podcast as just a very conversational cubing podcast about us, right? Where it's a much different avenue, but at the end of the day, I want to say that Solve Guys was really good, and I'm really excited because I think I have a larger vision for cubing in general, and that larger vision requires developed content, for cubing.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
And I just like where this is going. I think cubing is going in the right direction now.
I mean, look, there's a reason why we call ourselves the greatest speed cubing podcast in the world, is because we are the only real.
Many.
Yeah, there literally are not that many, and there are not many that are still active, right? That was one thing that Chai and I really wanted to fix we didn't want to follow that rabbit hole. Is the other ones they start uploading and they kind of just die off, and I guess that kind of happened to us a little bit too last year, but I mean we're back better than ever. And I think we're getting pretty close to eclipsing most of becoming the longest running podcast in the speedcubing space. I think we're probably getting relatively close to that now. So
I think we are getting close. I think by the time we pass season 3,
I want to say 50 or 60. Yeah,
you'd be remiss to find one that is quite at the frequency that ours has become.
Right.
But I don't know. I just really like it. I like turning our podcasts into this this Joe Rogan experience. Discography of just anything goes kind of thing.
Yeah. And here's another thing I really love about this is I think it's a great the podcast is honestly an excuse for us to just hang out. And we just get to talk about cubing, or honestly sometimes we don't talk about cubing. Do you guys remember the one episode we did that was ranking Pokemon?
The Pokemon
starters?
one.
Yeah.
What was that?
It
has nothing to do with cubing at all. We're just there. We're just hanging out. We're dunking on Poplio because Poplio is by far the worst starter. Don't have me.
I mean, Poplio was not bad competitive. I mean, Primarina.
Primarina's awesome.
This is part of the reminiscing.
Yeah, Primarina's.
I remember we were planning on talking about which episode from the past we remember the best, and I feel the fact that we've already just brought it up without even asking a question answers that. It's the ones that stand out. It's when our conversations drift away from cubing that we remember them the best.
You and I were in the last 2 competitions back-to-back weeks. It was a long 2 weeks that we were doing this. But 625.
Yeah.
625, and then I think 2 weeks prior to that, Berkeley Pride, and then Cubing USA Western Championships 2023.
Yep.
And the craziest thing is that people would stop us and tell us that we were the greatest speedcubing podcast in the world.
Especially at 625, because the table that we were set up to stream at was near where the competitors would enter and stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out all you guys that truly, genuinely listen to the podcast, and I think at the end of the day, we want you to get to know us.
Yeah.
I think cubing could be a lot more personal, and I think there is a whole component to cubing that's about life lessons. I think there's a whole component to cubing that's about ethical, quandaries, stuff like that. And then, we aim to tackle all those things, and I think people think about those things. And a great one to talk about is just well, like, what does it mean to have a World Cube Association where we have like 500 competitors in a competition and no security, right? And we talk about this, right? So like that's one of those things that's really, really important. How do we prevent the World Cube Association from becoming Super Smash Brothers Melee, right? So like just little things like that, where like you would never ever like talk about that on like a YouTube video just as is. But
right.
you know,
I mean, those videos would not do well, and to be honest, those podcasts did not do well. Like, if you want to look at the numbers, they didn't do well. But the thing is, like, the whole point of this, like, the podcast space is to talk about the things that we think are interesting, and you know, these are things that, like it or not, like, these are things that, like, we have to discuss. They're like the dark sides of cubing, if you will, but it just comes with the territory of, as cubing is growing to a wider and wider audience literally every single week. It's all this stuff just happens, and it's important to nip it in the bud, you know?
Yeah. But
yeah, anyways, and I also think like for a lot of these topics also, sometimes I feel like I personally don't have like a strong enough conviction with one of the topics to make an outright YouTube video, like my opinion on XYZ. But I feel like, you know, when we have the podcast continually going, it's like, oh, why don't we just like kind of do a little banter about this trending topic, even if, you know, we have slightly conflicting opinions. It's like it helps us like clear the air and like make it more okay to talk about.
Yeah,
even if you
it's like a
don't
forum
know exactly
setting
where you stand.
Yeah,
it's a
like a
conversation.
forum.
It's a conversation.
Exactly.
We're not keyboard warriors, you know.
We're microphone warriors.
We're microphone warriors.
I know.
I do want to say,
microphone.
Going back a little bit, when we're doing this, shouting out like people, like, you know, people telling us we're greatest speed cubing podcast. One thing I think which was critical in the rebirth of Overinspected season 2 was last year during Western Championships at UCLA. This was September or October, I think. I was just there to compete, and someone stopped me as I was just, I think I was just hanging out, and it turns out she was a mother of a competitor, and she said to me like, "Oh, I recognize you. You're from the podcast, right? The cubing podcast." I'm like, yeah, that's us. Like, and I was surprised. I was like, you know, like I'm basically a nobody, right? My claim to fame is some clock NR from like 10 years ago, and no one should know who I am. And I was like, do you listen to the podcast? That's awesome. And what she said was quite inspiring. So she told me that she had listened to the podcast and she really enjoyed it, and she was wondering when new episodes were going to come out, because to her, as you know, a parent in the world of cubing, she actually found the podcast really useful to kind of understand what was going on in the world of speed cubing, kind of from like a more of like an adult's perspective, and like very quickly understand like what topics are going on in the world of speed cubing. And she said that really helped her like relate to her son a little bit, and it made, I don't remember if she exactly said this, but I got the impression that she enjoyed going to the competitions more because she understood more about like what was going on, and she felt like she was more connected to the community, and that way she felt like she could support her son better. And that, I was just like, this is not what we had anticipated. Like, that's not why we started the podcast.
Story. Yeah, I
oh really? I didn't tell you this.
No,
yeah.
You didn't tell me this.
Yeah.
And
I think I do remember you mentioning that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it helps like frame almost like the role that we have in the cubing community, because I feel like we are like quite a bit older than a lot of the newbie cubers, but we're not like parents yet. So like maybe we help bridge the gap between generations. And even though that's like not the initial reason why we started the podcast, it's like definitely I'm like very grateful and glad that like that's kind of something we've been able to accomplish, bridging the gap.
Yeah. I mean, when I heard it, I was like, wow, like it's not what I had anticipated, but if that's something that you can take away from the podcast, then like that's awesome. I'm so glad that like this exists for you in this way. And after that, I was like, okay, like we need to start thinking about potentially getting this started again, because if it's having that kind of impact on people, then there's no reason why we shouldn't continue, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then we made another 20 episodes.
And here you go. So if you were that parent who came up to me during Western Champs last year and you're listening to this, thank you. It was definitely good motivation. It was great to hear from you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy how like look, let's be honest. Like, we're not that big, but it's really nice to really see in person the people that impact, because every one person is one person life changed, right? And I'm not saying we're life changing as a presence. I'm just saying that, well, I'm glad to be able to provide an impact. And like this podcast, and like as you're explaining this, Manu, it really gets me thinking about the entire history of the WCA and how it has come to be. And like, I think a lot of people would agree that right now the World Cube Association has a lot of problems to fix, right? And one of the biggest problems is that the cubing community as a whole has gotten progressively younger. What does that mean? If your competitors are getting younger, your staffers are getting younger.
Yeah.
And I thought that a huge issue that I've now identified, the 25 to 35-year-olds who were in the WC community were rocking and rolling back in the heyday, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. They phased themselves out of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than getting back to the community in a different format, in a different way, they phase themselves out and they go on. Because of burnout, because of whatever reason, because it's not for them anymore, because they can't compete. But they're gone. Like, that's just a fact of life.
I have friends like that. Yeah.
And I find it very interesting that we're in a key position where we are at the age of biggest impact of anyone in any part of the cubing community. Because of like, well, I mean, we don't have like a ton of responsibilities, right?
Exactly.
We care a lot about the cubing community, but we're not like heavily invested in the competitive component of it anymore.
Right.
But the fact that we're kind of engaging in this conversation and being able to have cubing bridge the gap between what it means to be a 10-year-old cuber and a 25-year-old staff member is really key. Because eventually you're going to need the World Cube Association as a whole, as an organization, to be led by adults, right? And you're going to need the organization as a whole for the vision to fully come to life, to have all these people in a position of giving back. Right, like truly giving back, and that requires a lot of mental maturity. And I think for me, it's a really good time to really continue to give back. Right, we're in a power where we can give so much back to the community, and just let people compete. Like this, I think this is really like. That's what got me thinking when you told me that story. I think we're at the perfect age to give back to the community too.
Yeah. I mean, and even not even like podcasts. Even if it's just like even if it's just like putting on competitions, trying to make them like better. I think we've gotten. I remember because you posted today in the WCC community Discord about, hey, like Western Championships happened. We hope you enjoyed. What, like, do you have any feedback? And overwhelmingly, I think quite a number of people have been like, yeah, this was great. We watched a couple of vlogs as well from people who have published those, and a lot of the feedback is very positive. So even if it's just like that, just to hear someone say like, oh yeah, this was one of the better competitions I've been to. Like they had a merch booth. That was awesome. They had a photo booth. That was cool. Signing? Wow, I've never seen that at a regional before.
And then think about it, there's post-comp. Post-comp, you still have the live stream. You also have content like the podcast that we have here today. I mean, we could spend like hours and hours just talking about Western Championships.
True.
Which we probably should, by the way. It was a great competition. But like, we have this post-comp content that is not just a vlog. Right? And then it doesn't stop here. So it's just like this whole immersive experience of being a part of the cubing community that, we can definitely influence going forward.
Yeah, totally.
I actually kind of wanted to pivot just a little bit. This might be throwing you guys in the moment, in the spotlight.
Oh, all right. Let's see.
I was curious if you guys had a favorite episode of Overinspected, or most memorable one to you.
Oh, actually, I can think one of them just instantly popped in my head.
Okay, go for it.
Not because I think it was the highest quality or like best, but just because like I think it pushed me to like act on my feet the most, and that was the one where I was on the Berkeley Cube Cube Club retreat in Yosemite. And
yeah.
we had all the current members of the Berkeley Cube Club, and I was quote unquote interviewing them. That was very unconventional.
Very, very
and
impromptu, yeah.
Yeah, I feel probably you two had no idea what was gonna happen.
I mean, so I think for anyone who doesn't know, if you haven't already figured it out, we never script any of these. We have an idea of okay, we're gonna talk about something in this general area, and sometimes we have some sub points. But man, dude, that Berkeley Cube Club episode during retreat was just completely something else.
It was completely wild.
I mean, also because I don't think I have. Well, one is I don't. There's certain people in that club that I didn't know that well, but then I sort of had to take on the role of host and kind of ask them questions, just a couple about how their thoughts about cubing, and I think that sort of forced me to get to know people, push the boundaries of their thoughts on cubing, and I guess I had to take the driver's seat essentially, and I think in a lot of these, cubing interactions, it's very easy to take the passenger seat, unless you're sort of thrust into it like that. So yeah, I would say that episode to me is the one that stands out in my head the most as an episode of Overinspected that I will never forget.
Yeah,
I guess it was 2 episodes technically.
That's true.
It was
that's true.
2.
We originally only planned to record 1 that day, but we had to turn it into 2 because we just couldn't stop talking, and there was a lot of good stuff, right? So
what I loved about that podcast, Carrie, is I thought that podcast captured the essence of what it means to be a cuber with cubers.
True.
I thought it captured the essence perfectly. The most enjoyable component about cubing, we say this all the time, is the friends that you make, right? But you get a lot of vlog content, competition content, but this is just a little bit more pulled back behind the scenes. We're all in a house together. We're all hanging out. You're probably not gonna record it, but you're probably playing board games. You're probably just what I mean, just hanging out.
Yeah.
That's why do parents hold barbecues in their backyard for all their friends?
It's just this. Yeah.
It's a moment in time where you get to see all of your friends, and I think as you get older, those moments become more and more special, and I think those podcasts really encapsulate that really, really well. In fact, even I think a couple of those people in that podcast are I don't care that it's Rubik's Cube Club. I don't care about cubing. I'm just here to have a good time.
Yeah,
I remember Aiden said I'm not that much into cubing anymore. I'm more into rock climbing, but the retreat is just so fun.
Exactly.
To hang out with friends for a weekend.
Yeah.
And I definitely relate to that feeling. But yeah, I think what will happen is 5-10 years from now, a lot of the people all of us some of us might drift away from cubing, but that's an archive of as you said, a moment in time. What the memes were in the cubing world at the time, or what people's kind of perception of the Cube Club was at the time.
Yeah.
It's all frozen and recorded in this time capsule.
Yeah. It's a moment in time. You'll never forget it, and it's just precious in a way. But one guarantee: 10 years down the road, 625 will still be Mitch's PR.
Okay.
Oh no.
That's brutal. Hey, look,
absolutely brutal.
At this rate,
he might get another 625.
Exactly. At 10 years from now, he's in 2033. He's gonna get another 65. That's the pattern. So.
I know.
Pattern. Yeah.
I really feel like before he got 625 again, I did think, okay, all memes fade with time, and then eventually this will fade. But once he got it again, he pretty much cemented
he refreshed
that it will last another 10 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
He refreshed it.
Yeah.
See, there is a non-zero chance that Mitch in the next 10 years retires, quote unquote, from cubing. And when he retires, he'll stop improving in speed. And therefore, there's a very realistic chance that 65 is his
He's gonna live forever. Yeah.
And he decides to come back in 2032. And guess what? What is his next best off gonna be? Probably he's gonna tie 65 for a third time.
Man.
I think that's a non-zero chance.
Oh my god.
I
think it's much more than non-zero.
What if he retires?
I think it's close. Yeah, I know. Well, I honestly think that a lot of my stats on my profile are probably never gonna get beaten, and so I have to you know, it's like at some point you realize like, oh, 30.5 might be my 3 blind PR forever. And I think for Mitch, like 625 is not a bad way to go.
At this point, definitely not. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like I think it's like one of the most. Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think if I was Mitch, if I had to end my cubing career with 625, I would.
It might be
feel
bittersweet.
Really bad.
Yeah,
it would be really bad. It would be like, man, I really never lived out this meme.
But hey, dude, Mitch.
That's true.
Didn't Mitch got a pure? He got a pure sub 8 average, right, at 65.
Not pure. I think the last all was not counting. It was like the slowest.
But in any case, so you know he's showing signs of improvement. So who knows?
Like continue to improve and like, I'm rooting for you, Mitch. I'm not saying that like you are destined to be locked into this 65. I remember when I was like younger, I did notice that people's singles and averages tend to be about 2 seconds apart. So if you can get a sub 8 average, you can probably get a sub 6 single.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I say this as someone who's like 3 seconds slower, so whatever.
Let's see.
Okay,
I think that's a great podcast a great episode to select as your favorite episode, Carrie.
I think if I had to pick,
thank you.
So I think if I had to pick what my favorite episode was, the very first episode that comes to mind has to be the one with Heidi. I think that one has to be the one. I have to pick that one simply because it was so much fun recording that podcast. Like setting up that podcast in like I don't even remember which competition it was. Some random Berkeley competition. We're outside like during lunch. The three of us are just there, and Heidi is also there. We just set up the laptop, set up the cameras, and just go. And we talked about loads of fun stuff. Got to know her a little bit better too. I have only fond memories from that.
Yeah, I have to agree that like I think I got to know Heidi like more in that podcast in that 1 hour than I had like ever before then. Because like I just knew that she was a really fast cuber from our area, and like she was breaking not world records, but I guess like female world records. But I didn't know like what her like internal thoughts were when she was getting those times. Right. Until that podcast.
Right. And I think it was good to kind of talk to her and kind of like break that ice a little bit, because I think it's not necessarily the easiest to get to know someone necessarily. But I think the podcast format was because like the three of us are casual, and the three of us, let's face it, are a bunch of idiots anyway. So we're fooling around. It makes it a lot easier, I think, for the guests to also like relax, loosen up a little bit. And I think that was great. And I think since then she's become one of the friends of Cubers Live. So yeah, I think we gained a good friend that day too.
That's very true. I feel like just like I've always known Heidi, but I feel like that podcast like developed the friendship a lot more. Like for one reason or another. Also, for that podcast episode, I just wanted to shout out the fact that the Blue Yeti is a workhorse.
Yeah.
The Blue Yeti is an absolute monster. Like that podcast should sound like absolute dog poop.
It should sound terrible, but it sounds pretty good.
In a noisy venue, right?
Yeah, pretty noisy venue. But I think we adjusted the gain a little bit, and I think I put some noise reduction on it in post-processing. But I mean, it sounds quite good. And the other thing to note is we all have different like levels of speaking. I think like I'm pretty loud and Heidi is very quiet. So, but it still like captured the four of us pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, and we weren't leaning into the microphone at any point to like capture the absolute best audio. We were just able to have a conversation, and the Blue Yeti picked it up with, you know, a little bit of ambient noise. But I just love it. I just wanted to highlight that if you're a content creator and you're looking for a mic, a Blue Yeti is a great choice.
This guy. The other thing is I actually kind of liked a little bit of ambient noise. I think like having that's why I add music to the background of these, right? Because otherwise, like if it's just there are times where it's just silent, and at that point it's like I don't know, it feels a little awkward. Maybe it's just me, but I like there to be a little bit of noise.
I think also like the fact that episode was at a competition, you know, like other people are doing their official solves and being called in. It's like the podcast was sort of happening in the hustle bustle of the Cuban community anyway. Like you want to feel like
right.
even if you, like the focus is not the Cubers in the back, like we're in a place with lots of other Cubers right now, and you can feel their presence.
It's like the concrete jungle where dreams are made of, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's where I am right now. I'm in New York, the concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
I didn't know that was like a real phrase.
There's nothing you can't do.
I thought the concrete jungle was just like...
It's a lyric.
From Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys.
Oh, Empire State of Mind?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Okay. I guess
yeah, it's a great song, by the way. I think actually, I don't know if everyone knows it because it got taken off of a lot of licensing.
Oh, it did?
I think Jay-Z took it off, like of a lot of places.
Interesting.
I did hear that there was some Jay-Z nonsense that was going on with like licensing music.
Yeah, something like that. Great song.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that is a side tangent. This is New York behind me.
Yay, blackness.
Do you want to tell a little bit of like do you want to tell everyone you know what I just realized, Carrie? And this is like actually pretty funny. I find that it has turned into a little bit of an adventure of where Carrie is gonna be.
Yeah. Where in the world is Carrie home?
Not only like because obviously we know you're somewhere, right? But for the audience, they're just like
the background is different. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. So like
that's true because like once I was in Yosemite.
Yeah. Which is actually really funny. So like what are you up to in New York, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I should get my phone so I can show some screenshots, but one of my other side hobbies is running this YouTube channel. It's like an animated cartoon show called Battle for Dream Island, and me and like other animators in that sort of space, we host a meetup with our fans about once a year around like June or July. And this year we wanted to have 2 locations so that like the East Coast and West Coast fans can both enjoy it. So the LA meetup was last week, and it was a huge success. You know, actually I got to meet Rosie O'Donnell, so like I can like show photos of that. And then in a couple days we're gonna have the New York meetup. And I was gonna I'll go grab my phone. It'll take like 30 seconds, just because I think there's like some like photos there that I could like show. But that's all like outside the topic of cubing. But that's why I'm in New York. Basically, like the fans signed up to meet me, my brother, Adam Katz, and a bunch of other friends. And it's like, if they pay tickets to see me, I'd better show up.
That's cool. That's cool.
But yeah, pretty cool opportunity.
Because I do know that you were in SoCal last weekend, right? But I just think it's really cool to sort of kind of like have the listeners of the podcast also, if you're listener only, maybe it doesn't apply to you, but it's like this fun little like Easter egg game of like I wonder what Carrie's up to.
Carrie's
like,
background keeps changing all the time.
We're always in the same background, right? Like me.
Yeah.
Well, I think I haven't been traveling that much. Like I'm trying to think like what other locations I've filmed from.
Well, you were at
my grandma's house.
Yeah, you were at your grandma's house once. Also Yosemite.
I think those are the 3.
I feel like there was one more.
Well, I could list off all the places I've been, but I don't think that like
that would make it hard to narrow down. Yeah.
What happened?
I don't think that,
no,
like a podcast
Carrie
that might have happened.
Somewhere. Carrie went somewhere after Manu went to Japan. I went
to Australia.
Australia.
I forgot about that. But I don't think we did any podcast episodes from there, did we?
I don't think we recorded. Yeah, because I think the time difference was too wild.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because it would have been like 8 hours or 9 hours different.
No, it is wild. Then never mind. Maybe
I
was
guess
just for us to know.
Yeah, but I guess that that is proof that like it's not that I'm the only traveler. Like Manu, like you went to Japan, so
that's like, true. Yeah, that did happen.
That's true.
We have both been seeing the world.
Well, that's true.
But
Chai's gonna go to Worlds. I think Carrie may or may not go to Worlds. So
Korea.
Yeah, we're all
in South Korea
this year. Yeah,
that'll be really exciting. I'm down for that.
I know. South Korea, Japan, Australia. They're all in the same time zone, roughly. Like north, south. They're like.
Actually, yeah, that is kind of interesting because Korea and Japan are on the same time. So.
True.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that makes sense because they're so close by. Well, I'll go grab my phone like just for the fun of it, but like Yeah, I guess this is slightly off tangent, but that's why it's overinspected.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just cubing. Okay, I'll
Alright,
be back.
indeed. Chai,
You know
in the
what I think
meantime,
about-
why don't you tell us about your favorite episode of the podcast so far? I think
my favorite.
you're the last one.
I
I don't think you
definitely
can get away from
want-
this, dude.
Yeah, I definitely want Carrie to be able to like hear this one, so I just wanted to give like a little like, oh, nice. I was just sort of thinking about like the Heidi episode.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that one, and I think that episode could be a model going forward of like some of the execution of Overinspected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's no secret that we want to do more in-person podcasts,
That's
and
no
obviously
secret,
it's not possible every single week logistically, but I think we had a very, very like unique setup, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, and I loved the intimate atmosphere component to it, and it was sort of like cubing, not cubing in a tent. It was the one that Carrie was talking about with the Cal Cube Club. It felt very real. It just felt like cubers talking about cubing,
Yeah, yeah.
That's the essence of Overinspected, right? But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Carrie, you said you had some photos, right? And this is exclusive to video only podcast listeners.
All right.
Oh yeah, actually I think I can show you because like this shows spoilers from the next episode, which isn't premiering until July 9th. But I don't know if this episode won't come out until after July 9th.
then.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I can show this.
Yeah. Ooh, sneak peek.
But by the way,
Also,
I was gonna say
it might not show
I
up.
do agree that like the Heidi episode was really cool. I just wanted I didn't want to interrupt that train of thought. But anyway, like so this is the venue that we
Whoa.
had it at. Oh wait, you can't really see it that
Oh,
well.
it kinda
But see
looks
the
like a
episode
TED
is
Talk
happening
thing.
over there.
Oh, I see.
Whoa, it's
And-
not even that blurry. That's kind of it's very clear where this is.
Wait, let me turn the volume up.
North Hollywood, all right. Oh, I see. So it's a premiere for one of the episodes. Huh?
Yeah, it was like a screening.
Oh, that's cool.
Ah. Very, very cool. I dig it.
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. That's honestly,
So
these events are massive. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's super cool.
there's me. But
Got a little carry on candid camera.
yeah, so that was like I guess a candid camera like live footage of the screening. And I have to like thank Adam, my friend, because like he was the one who found the venue and sort of managed everything. Because I don't know how he found a place like that.
Yeah, me neither. Like even as a competition organizer, the first thing I think of is like, how do you get that venue?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
You're-
yeah.
You're in too deep.
Yeah, like that's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
for every time I'm in a facility, I'm like, how can I book this place?
Dude, oh my goodness.
Dude,
Chai
I went to Prithem's.
Yeah. We went to the wedding, and the first thing Chai says is like, 300% comp, easy. We need to do it. And he he sent an email, I think, to the people of that like little center. And then I think he tried to call them, and then they just ghosted him.
Yeah, it was at.
Oh.
Yeah, it was at least a 300. Like I walked into
Well-
Prithem's wedding. I'm like, Manu, this is a 300-person competition right now.
Oh my god.
like let me
Well-
count how many round tables are right here right
Yeah,
now.
I
so we
remember
count
that,
The
yeah,
spectator space.
I mean, do you think the wedding itself had 300 people, or are you like assuming at a competition
nah.
you can fit
It probably had less.
like
Probably
the
had a bit
density
less,
of cubers? Because I guess a lot of cubers are kids. Like you can probably like fit more of them in the same building.
Squish them.
It was a bigger venue than I think anything we've hosted a competition in Northern California.
Wait, okay, whoa.
Right.
It wasn't that.
I-
It was
Oh.
not, it was not
think
bigger
it's
than
bigger
Poly.
than-
It was not bigger than Poly.
It's
Paul-
almost bigger than Poly.
Maybe the aspect ratio is different, but
I think it's more square than Poly.
it is more square. That's true.
Yeah. But
also, I mean, like I'm just saying, it's a great venue space, and Poly is like Poly is like a blessing to have Poly, pretty much.
But yeah,
yeah,
it's
and
always
I
nice
think
to
that
spread the wealth.
that's true.
it's cool that these college campuses like you can go back to again and again, because I imagine like every time you reuse a venue, it's a lot easier to like set up everything because you already know like the inner workings of it, how much it's going to cost, and like
Correct.
how
Yeah.
much space it can fit. Like,
especially with the Berkeley events staff, like I think they do a pretty good job, like setting up the chairs and tables for us ahead of time, and I think they do a pretty good job.
Oh,
with that.
yeah.
So it makes our job a lot easier. That's for sure.
that's really nice of the Berkeley staff. Like, shout out to them.
True. They work long hours too.
They do.
They work hours that it's kind of crazy that they even allow this, but shout out to Berkeley staff. At least it happens. I guess I'll sort of like talk about my favorite episode to kind of like keep the podcast moving along. But my favorite episode, given the answers that you guys gave, it's interesting. You guys both gave season 2 episodes.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. I was thinking, are we limiting the question to just season 2?
No.
Or all of it?
I think I was thinking, I think personally I do have a favorite. I think the Heidi episode is probably my favorite just because of all the factors involved. Mm-hmm. But obviously there are other great episodes.
Oh yeah.
And I
think
the
totally.
the one that really stands out to me is similar to how Carrie felt about his episode with the Berkeley Cube Club. But I actually found that I think the episode that I think of that I really want to share means a lot to me is I think it is the episode after we made a studio, which is Preetham as our first guest.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I think
there's a few reasons for this, right? And the few reasons for this is, if you watch that podcast, we clearly did not know like everything we wanted to do. I think someone even commented, now that you guys are doing in-person podcasts, you guys have to wear pants.
Oh, were we not wearing pants at...
not like long pants.
We were all wearing shorts.
We're all wearing, we were
all wearing short pants, and it was just like really funny watching that. It just stood out so clearly, and it reminded me of how not like serious to sort of take all of this, and it's good fun. And at the end of the day, that podcast was really predicated on the founding of Cubers Live. That episode was really like, it was actually the season 1 finale, and now that I think about it, it really turned into a reminiscing of what was.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, because
the whole thing about season 2 season finale here is we're reminiscing. And now that I think about it, we did the same exact thing on the season 1 season finale.
Yeah, that's what it ended up being. I mean, we talked about like the founding of Cubers Live, how Preetham started Cubers Live, and Twisty Puzzle Cup. And then we talked a little bit about like streaming comps and stuff when we were getting back into that. And you're actually right. Yeah,
I remember
history repeats itself, huh?
For that episode, or maybe the one before it, like if you look at the timestamps for what we talked about over time, like it's almost like funny how many topics we like jump between, because we were like reminiscing about so much, I guess. But yeah, I remember like recording those 2 episodes, and it was fun because like I would drive out to like film it with you guys, and then afterward like we'd go and get like dinner after.
I was gonna say that was one of the, I think the funnest parts was I think it was just like the 4 of us, or in the We Built a Studio episode, the 3 of us going out to just eat food and just chill. I mean, that was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the vibe of our conversations when it's like not on the podcast is like even more like chill, because like I guess like we don't even have an audience listening at that point, but it was like a way to, I guess like we didn't realize it was going to be the end of the season, but it did sort of end up summarizing the season anyway. I'm gonna try to find that episode.
Yeah, it was a fun episode, and I don't think like Carrie mentioned, I don't think the content was that great, but I love nostalgia, and I love like the gatherings, and I think it's actually, we all picked episodes in person.
That's interesting. Yeah, we did all.
We did. Heidi, the Preetham, and actually all with other people as well.
And Berkeley Cube Club.
Club. Like we ended up, it's just one of those things where I feel like the greatest thing about Overinspected is we are able to capture the most intimate moments of what it means to be a cuber.
Yeah, Yeah.
Right, like all sides, not just the performing or solving or even the competitions, but
Right,
also
yeah, right. And that's exactly what my goal was with at least the Preetham episode and definitely the Heidi episode as well. I think like going into that, I had an idea of like, okay, well, the first half we can talk about cubing, right? The second half, no cubing. We have to talk about other things like what do you tell
Golf.
us about you as a person? Yeah, golf. Or I think Preetham told us about like here's how like we started like Cubers Live and other stuff too. So I think that's really important because I think like bringing the guest has value not just for their cubing capability but also as like a person that you can interact with. And it sounds stupid to say, but I think it's really, really cool to just like get to know people, and I think that's one of the best opportunities that the podcast has given, and hopefully will continue to give us in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Just like getting to know people better, and I also found the like description. This is actually not from the Preetham episode, but the one before we made a studio.
Right, I was gonna say. Yeah.
Hold on. So if you're listening on audio only, timestamp 5:20 says Degenerates Gen Z Y2K.
And then podcast,
I don't know how-
analytics, and then after that it was like a
how are
philosophy
any of those
thing.
related?
Oh, that's right. How
But I
many
think it's
years
funny,
of
like-
as many years? Oh God, I remember that.
Getting rid of filler words.
Yeah, I think we were talking about saying like or all the time.
Dude,
But I think what's funny is near the bottom it says back to asymmetry,
Right.
LOL. So that means
Oh.
we talked about asymmetry at some point, wanted off to something else, and it came back to it.
Yeah,
We were talking
yeah.
about how asymmetry is like the true sign of objective beauty.
Right. Yeah, that
Oh,
was
I think
that's the
I think
philosophy
you were
section.
saying that, Chai.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the imperfection, the philosophy part. But you know what I
Yeah.
also noticed? In this podcast, I talked about how I was super self-conscious about using filler words.
Yeah.
And I think Manu, you were sort of like defending me, like it's at the end of the day, it's not
Yeah.
so bad to
Yeah,
use
it's not-
them.
it's not that bad.
Because it shows that you're trying to think about what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
you know me, I tried to get better at being a podcaster, and I tried to get better at like not using all those words. And I think, I'm really listening to all these podcasts. Sometimes I'm doing a way better job
There you go.
of being what you would call an orator of sorts.
Okay.
An orator. Yeah, I've become better at it.
I guess I can't remember what it was like doing episode 1, 2, and 3, whether I heard a lot of filler words. I guess our brains just kind of
They just delete them.
glance over them. Anyway, they just delete them from their memory. But, when I talk to you now, I don't know, I feel like you are very coherent, maybe more coherent than me right now. Like, I'm struggling
Well,
to,
here's
like...
the thing. Once you start talking about filler words, you just can't stop thinking about it. You're
That's
like,
true.
no,
That's true.
I can't say it here.
I've definitely
I can't
done this
say it
on
there.
I've definitely done this on the
Yeah.
podcast before, but it's like the time when you're manually breathing, right? If I tell you that, then now like you can't stop manually breathing.
Yeah. Now I'm breathing manually
So-
and blinking,
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. Sorry, children.
trying to find a comfortable place to put your tongue in your mouth.
Oh my.
I love it.
That would have to be the most awkward. I think. I feel like tucking my.
It's okay, Manu. It was always there. You just forgot about it.
Oh,
And now you're giving it all the attention it deserves.
But it's so weird. Oh my goodness, it's so strange. It's so strange.
Guys, I think this is almost the end of the finale. And I think we should end on a positive outlook.
Ooh.
What do you guys think is going to be the word to define Overinspected Season 3?
Season 3.
If you could describe it in one word.
Oh, I don't know.
Actually, let's play an easier game. How would you use one word to describe Season 2? Because for me, I answered that question. My answer to that question is execution.
Okay, interesting.
We executed in all the mistakes from Season 1.
Okay, I would say
So what would you
Renaissance.
guys label Season 2?
So mine is like on the same vein. I think mine is like Renaissance, right? So like we took the ideas from Season 1 and then we built upon them and then we made them better than they have been before. I actually do think the content was better overall. And I think we did I think our setups improved a little bit. I think the editing pipeline improved a little bit. We were a little bit more experimental. You know, we have shorts now, right? That was the thing that we've never done before.
That's true.
The numbers are looking a lot better, you know. So yeah, so I would say it's a little bit of a renaissance from where Overinspected had ended last June. And you know, there was, in theory, it was possible that was just the end, that there was just not going to be any more. But I mean, came back from the ashes and bigger, better, stronger than ever, and we're feeling good.
Carrie, what would
you guys pick such good words, like
yeah,
both picked like 12-letter words, which makes you sound so smart. So if I pick like good as my word, now I'm gonna look like a dum-dum.
Okay, so actually, to be honest, good was the exact first word I thought of. I think I thought of I think I thought of like
I didn't wanna...
or something. So
yeah, I didn't want to pick good.
Well, if you pick great, it's one extra letter.
That
also,
is true.
If you pick better, it's two extra letters, like your cats.
True.
Oh, best. Oh, that's too.
Oh no, that's going down. You're not smart anymore.
I'm scrolling through the episodes right now to try to figure out a word. I wanted to just say like rule breaking, which sounds like a bad thing, but like in the sense that like I think we had certain
how about
rules.
innovative?
Innovative. That's a lot better. It's a lot more positive.
Okay.
For every episode of season 1, except for the like we build a studio one, it was kind of like the same format, I want to say. But then like when I'm scrolling through this and I see that like there's the ones where we had the Berkeley Cube Club in Los Angeles, it's like I can tell those are like very visually different, and like
well, that's because someone was too lazy to make a thumbnail, but
oh no, it's not on you. I mean, it's also on me for like not bringing headphones or like everything was different, but in an innovative way. Like I think a lot of our ideas of what had to be in an episode were like thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And you know, like the best example of that is the dark secret of North American Championship.
Yeah.
That is like the most rule-breaking episode there is.
Yeah. Wait, does that episode have more than 100 views now?
It's 125.
Really?
Wow, that's surprising.
It's more viewed
for something that was
more viewed than like the 3. It's more viewed than the 3 episodes before it, even.
That's
if
crazy.
If you guys are listening and you're unaware, I'm pretty sure that episode is actually not one of the 40 episodes. We labeled it episode X1.
That's correct.
X1.
A complete troll episode. So.
Oh, it is X1.
You never know when X2 is gonna show up.
Yeah, it could be sooner than you think. So
yeah, it could be sooner than you think. What does X mean? Maybe we plotted this all along. Maybe it means something.
Massive brain.
Yeah, big brain.
Maybe.
Okay, so I had execution, Manu had renaissance, and Carrie had innovative. Now the question is, do we think that season 3 is? Should we use the same words to describe what we want season 3 to be?
Interesting.
I personally don't want
like
my
innovative.
word to be I don't like execution for season 3.
Interesting. Okay.
I think I actually don't want to say innovative again for season 3.
Really?
I think we've already been doing this, but the word I would want for season 3 is personal, because I think I like, as we were saying, you know, people getting to know us as people, and like us getting to know our audience as people. Which like that has been happening, but I wouldn't want it to stop.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I can totally. That's actually really, really good.
So Manu wants to use innovative. Carrie wants to use the word personal.
Then you can use the word good.
I think the word that I said this off the podcast, but I think I really, really think that for season 3, I want the podcast to feel intimate.
Okay.
So I think pretty much I think and I think it will be. I think like if you guys think about all the podcast episodes that we still have planned that we want to do.
We still have a lot planned.
A lot of those are intimate episodes. A lot of those are going to be deep dives. And I think that a lot of the content from season 2, if we really, really break it down, it was impromptu things happening along with breaking news.
Yeah.
A lot of that, right?
Oh, that's true, like the world record averages.
And then our travel and then our normally scheduled program.
Right.
And like in 20 episodes, you can't really get too much of it, of like what we had planned this whole time. And I think in season 3, I really think we're gonna start to see, maybe the right word is blossom. I think I'm gonna see our content blossom into like mature.
Yeah.
And I think
Ooh, that's a very very
Yeah.
like visual word, a very floral word.
Yeah, maybe blossoming is the right word. I think season 3 is gonna be the season of blossoming.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see it, and there's a lot that the podcast has already gone through. Because as Carrie mentioned, like we've been doing this like right now. I think we're pretty close to almost exactly the 1.5-year mark since we started doing the podcast in January 2022. So you know, the podcast has come a long way. We've come a long way. Lots of stuff has changed for us. And I guess to do a very, very minor leak, a lot of stuff left to be planned. A lot of stuff is planned that is gonna happen in the near future as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'm ready for the ride, and I hope that you all are ready for the ride as well. I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping it up. So one thing I do want to say before we do end it is I think the podcast would not be possible without all of the listeners. Whether you subscribe, don't subscribe, you know, that bit does not matter that much. But if you just listen to the podcast at all and you find like if you find that this podcast helps you in any way, then that means a lot to us. It means a lot to me. I'm sure it means a lot to Carrie and Michael as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think we would do this podcast if it weren't for like people interacting with them, and especially like saying hi to us at the actual competitions. Like, it's a conversation between us, but it's also with the audience members. So keep, you know, if you see us in public, you know, say hi. That's the best part about it.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and like we're not like these like. I don't think any of us are like too big to be touched or whatever, right? Like I don't want the ego to get to my head at least, right? Like at the end of the day, like I'm just a goon, so like you should like never feel shy to come up and say hi. I was quite humbled when someone asked me to autograph one of their cubes, I think at 625. And someone asked me to autograph their shirt.
Man,
at,
let's be real. That's man, Manu, you're in over your head.
Too bad.
Come on,
I missed
Manu.
625. I should have gone just to
I
get
still
my
can't believe that
autograph.
happened.
What can I say?
Let's be real.
Dude, you know Ben asked me to sign his shirt on behalf of Cubers Live at Western Chimps. So
Did he? He asked me to sign his shirt, and I signed Vivek Verma.
So you just straight trolled him. You trolled him.
Yeah, it's because he asked Vivek to sign it right before me, and Vivek was like, nah.
Wait, and he said no? Wait, why?
Well, he ended up not doing it for whatever reason or another, and then I
Okay.
decided to write, you know.
Oh,
write
that's
the
so
thing.
funny. That's so funny.
Oh, Vivek is just too cool for this.
Yeah.
It's okay. No, Vivek, we're still good. We're still good.
Yeah.
I have a proposal here.
Ooh,
To end
proposal.
off this podcast, Manu, editor in the sky, can all three of us do the 07 emoji and sign out to some Ludwig fade music?
Oh, that's gonna be hard, but let's see if we can do it.
I don't know if I know the Ludwig fade music.
I don't know if I know the Ludwig fade music either, so I'm gonna have to look for it.
Wait, I'm not matching you guys. I
Overinspectors.
should be this way.
Overinspectors, it has been a wild journey, and it is time for us to end season 2, and we'll see you on season 3.
Overinspected out.
Overinspected out. See you in season 3.
Uh-oh.